my type of fantasy sort of straddles is the darker sides where things are a bit more realistic. Characters are flawed. No one's perfect. I think that's just more of a closer mirror reflection of our of our world, to be honest.
There are tales of rogues and whores, of stratagems and wars. There's a tale for every season of the year. There are tales of knights and queens, of drudgery and dreams. There's a tale for everybody here. There are stories galore, in volumes by the score, on every subject throughout history. It's all waiting in Pandora's library.
Welcome to December's episode of Pandora's Library, a monthly podcast about books that feature the mysterious, fantastical, dark, and creepy elements of life. If you're listening on the audio podcast and you prefer a visual podcast, you can find it on Spotify and YouTube. My name is Karen Hamilton-Vile. I'm a paranormal murder mystery author of a series of books about Ada Baker, a medium who solves murders with the aid of the ghost she lives with. This month, I'm interviewing fantasy author Richie Billings. Richie gave up his job as a lawyer to pursue his passion for writing. He writes all kinds of stories, but mostly fantasy fiction. His tales often explore real-world issues, zooming in on the characters and their troubles. His short fiction has been widely published, with one story adapted for BBC Radio. When not writing, Richie works as an editor and digital marketer and teaches creative writing both online and in his home city of Liverpool. Welcome to the show, Richie.
Thank you very much, Karen. It's great to be here.
And you very kindly gave me an e-copy of your novella, Together We Rise. Can you give us a brief outline of the book?
So, simply put, it's a story of a revolution against a corrupt regime, very much modelled on capitalism. And it's told from 8 perspectives. So I see it as like a relay race. So there's like 8 parts to the story with a character for each part. And each character sort of takes the story up to a point and then passes it on to the next one. And the reason why I wanted to do it in that way is to sort of, because I was decided I was going to critique the worst part of our system and the way that we live. I wanted to get the different perspectives and to show the impact on all these different people. Because even though it's a political book, it's not like about like left-wing politics or right-wing politics. It's just about the experience that we all sort of have. And that's probably one of the most refreshing things about writing this book and in speaking with readers after it, because people connect with all different characters, and it's interesting to see who leans more closely to one character than the others, sorry, and to see what issues people sort of attach to more, because, like I said, it's not, the world is it's in a pretty bad way. It's not like we've got the best leaders, and it feels like the world's just being pillaged just for the benefit of a few people, and basically, I just had enough personally, and I was getting really frustrated and a bit helpless as well, and that's why I decided to write a story about it.
Writing's so brilliant for that sort of thing, isn't it?
Mm.
I love the fact that lots of the characters in the story are people that traditionally, in a lot of books, may not have been expected to lead a revolution. And I read the first few chapters, and I was expecting sort of another male-centric fantasy, but was pleasantly surprised. So was it a conscious decision then to have characters leading the revolution that may ordinarily be perhaps side characters in some other books?
Yeah, it's exactly that. Yeah, it's nice that you picked up on it, because I just wanted to show people like that the power is within us all. We've just got to make the steps and make the change, I suppose, to decide to fight. And I like to sort of bring in characters that you wouldn't, like that you say, that sort of go against expectations. So the revolutionary, the revolution is organised and led by quite a quiet woman called Till, and her sort of advisor is this old sort of healer figure, and like I say, you don't get like an old person doing revolutions as such, but it's nice to sort of bring in these different perspectives because, like you say, the it does get boring seeing the same kind of characters, the same kind of tropes. The story kind of plays out in your mind before you read it, and it's nice to bring in different people from different parts of society. And like you say, it's great to see what characters readers connect with. I was speaking with one person recently, and she really connected with the drug dealer,
Oh, really?
which was
Okay.
quite interesting. And when we were sort of looking at that, she could just relate for the fact that she'd been in a position where she'd had no money. She was facing like homelessness, and she was like hungry, which is the point of King. That character is that the system has driven him to this down this route because that's his only option to make money and to not feel hungry. And he never ever wants to feel like he did when he was a kid, starving on the street. So this is his only option. He's sort of his humanity's been corrupted by the system and society. So it's quite interesting to look at these different things for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of backstory to a lot of the characters, haven't you, in the story, and their motivations are very clear, which I like. Sometimes you don't get a lot of that sort of fill in for the characters and why they're doing the things they do. So that was really good, and some of them are quite morally grey as well, which is always interesting.
Yeah, I think that's where sort of my type of fantasy sort of straddles is the darker sides where things are a bit more realistic. Characters are flawed, and no one's perfect. I think that's just more of a closer mirror reflection of our world, to be honest.
Different genre, but that's why I always liked what's her name, Jessica Jones, the superhero who's completely flawed, and she's a great character.
Yeah.
So each chapter focuses on a different character and different viewpoints, as you say in the book. Some of them inevitably meet up, but why did you decide to write it this way rather than a lot of people might focus on one protagonist and then follow them all the way through?
Yeah, it was a bit of a gamble. But it's like I said before, I decided I was almost going to take like almost loosely like an academic approach to critiquing society and the structures and the way things are. And you couldn't do that from one perspective. And that's why I wanted to bring in lots of different ones. And the inspiration for this really came from a TV show called The Wire. I don't know if you've ever seen The Wire.
I've heard of it, but I've not watched it myself, no.
For me, it's like the best thing ever made, both from like an artistic point of view, but also because it's almost like a novel or an essay critiquing the war on drugs and showing you the impact it's had on society and the people within it. And it's superb. And what they did is they looked at the sort of impact on initially the police and the drug dealers and the kids and the people around that. Then it looks at the sort of the docks and the workers and the impact that their declining industry has had, and also the sort of thriving drug industry and how the two of them meet. And then the good guys, these normal, ordinary, hardworking people get corrupted. And then it looks at like the media and how they report on the issues and the children who are being fed into this system. And you can almost see the life playing out before them. It's people get very much trapped in cycles. And I could relate a lot to this because growing up, there's a lot more options now, but you are sort of brought up in a quite deprived environment, and there's nowhere near as many opportunities as other people. And you do kind of just have to sort of battle. It is a bit of a battle. And that's why I wanted to reflect it in the story. It's like, this is gritty, it's real. I want people to be able to see themselves or at least relate to the issues that the story covers. So far, I think I've done okay at that from the reviewers' judgment so far.
I think my favourite character for some reason was I can't remember her name now, but the girl, the
Yeah,
young girl.
Mal.
Yeah, I don't know. I just really related to her for some reason. That she's such a small person, and yet she was playing her part in this revolution.
Yeah, and the sort of chaos that she has to navigate.
Hmm.
It's to me, she's quite symbolic of like the potential for this cycle. That sort of there's limited opportunities, and this is you're going to go down this path or this path, and like she started life in my sort of literary world in a short story called The Pigeon Catchers, where she had to, again in the city of Pietalos, her mother is dying, and it's just her and her brother, and they needed to get money to get medicine for her, basically. And the only way that the two of them know how to do this is to catch pigeons and then sell them to the shady restaurants and stuff like that. So that was a bit of a struggle again. It's like the point with characters like Marley is just to show that like every day is this fight for survival, and she's got to, even though she's like such a young child and she's so small, she's got to navigate a world that's like full of these sort of corrupted, scary grown-ups as well.
Yeah, she has a rough time of it, doesn't she?
Yeah, but she has a happy ending.
So, unusually, you have a soundtrack for your book, and readers can click a link in the digital version or scan a QR code at the beginning of each chapter. Why did you decide to do this? It's quite unusual.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever been done before, which was another reason why I wanted to try it. But I absolutely love music when it comes to anything fantastical. So like Lord of the Rings, like without that soundtrack, it would have been like a shell of what it is. I absolutely think the music takes things to a new level. For me anyway, it draws me deeper into the scene. And what I found with music is that you can almost trigger emotions with like crescendos and the way you sort of build things up. And what I wanted to do essentially with this is to try and give readers an extra element to the story that will almost bring them closer to the characters and to feel what they're feeling, because each song like sort of mirrors the emotional journey that they go through in that chapter. And it, like I say, it's never been done before, so I was a bit hesitant as to how it would go down. But
and have you had any feedback from the fans
yeah,
about it?
everybody loves it. Everyone's saying it's like because it's not been done, so it's fresh for people. And I'm glad that it has gone down quite well. I mean, when I was editing the story, I decided quite late on it was a feature I wanted to add in. And then when I was editing the story and I was thinking about how this music would work with each character, it sort of, it really like sort of drew me into the story even more. And I was able to sort of feel the characters' emotions when they were sort of down and out, and then at the sort of peaks of the points in the story, you could really feel it as well. And I thought, yeah, why not? Let's give it a go. Let's not have TV and film have all the fun. Why can't books have a bit of this as well? It's a modern age now. We've got to try these things, and like people's habits and interests are changing, and it's becoming more multimedia, more multidimensional.
So do you listen to music or anything when you write your books? I mean, I quite often do to get in the mood. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. I have quite a wide range of music, but if I'm trying to like really get into a fantasy scene, I will listen to fantasy music. I have a massive playlist of songs, and it just draws me in. I like love listening to like Final Fantasy music, like Elder Scrolls. I think there's a brilliant composer called Jeremy Soule who does all the Elder Scrolls music, and Nobuo Uematsu, I think, for Final Fantasy, and then all the Lord of the Rings music, and then all the stuff that like comes up alongside. Like there's some brilliant music for The Witcher. Yeah, and yeah, it's great to see. And I do, for my day job, I do copy editing, and this is called search engine optimization, which is quite dull. So I've gotten quite into like sort of low sort of key dance music, which with just stuff with a beat, a bit of psychedelic effects maybe, and that'll just keep me going along.
I used to listen to a lot of music myself, particularly Game of Thrones music. I used to
Oh yeah,
listen to. I quite often now listen to something in the setting that I'm in. So if it's in a woodland at night, I might have woodland nighttime noises, or
nice.
if it's at
That's
a
very
busy
nice.
cafe, I might have that playing in the background. So it kind of transports me to the place as well. But I
Yeah, I
think,
suppose it's quite easy to like describe them that sort of environment. The sensory details really place people there. So that's a really clever idea.
yeah, it's hard to go out, isn't it, and start typing away in a cafe or the middle of a wood or something. But yeah, um, YouTube's great for that, actually.
Mm.
So the book is set in the fantasy city of Pietalos. Did you say? Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, I let people pronounce things however the way they want.
And
So I say Pietalos,
Pietalos.
but
Okay.
Pietalos, I mean, that sounds quite cool as well.
And as the book starts, it almost feels a bit like a historical novel. I thought, this is what it's going to be, a historical. And I have to say, I had very much had Elizabeth Gaskell's North and South in my mind because of the sort of setting of the people working there and the hard life they were having, which I think was based on Manchester. But you live in Liverpool, sort of in the heartland of Britain's historical industry in the 19th century. So did that influence the idea of this book? Did where you grew up influence the idea for it?
I think it does. I'd say where I'm from influences probably all of my writing, to be honest. I've got a Liverpool historically, bit of a mixed history.
I
It's
don't
like
know a lot
sort of,
about it, I must admit. I don't know a huge amount about its history.
yeah. So it was nothing like a few hundred years ago. It was just like a little muddy pool. That's what Liverpool means in the Danish or Scandinavian.
Oh, okay.
And then it just this city just sprung up around it, and then they were one of the first places that came up with this dry dock system. Well, not dry dock system. It's like a basically they just put a door on the dock so that stops the tide going up and down, so people could unload the
Okay.
ships faster. Because when you were unloading ships back in the day, you'd have to wait for the tide, and if the tide came in, then you'd have to stop. So it took like sometimes it took like 3 days to unload the ship. So it's quite a simple thing, just putting a door on a dock. But everyone just sort of, that's why Liverpool sprung up. But then it just became this sort of home of like these wicked merchants who are like profiting on slavery and the industry surrounding that. Which is where the sort of all the grandiose buildings came from, because all these rich people were just building them all. But then sort of around the 1870s, probably around 1850s, 1860s, the famine happened in Ireland, and 1 million people, Irish people, came to Liverpool.
Wow.
And there was like 100,000 people there by then. So that was quite a sudden change. And they say now like 75% of people from Liverpool have got Irish in them. So my family, like half of them are all Irish. And you do identify quite strongly with that. And because of the famine, obviously under imperial rule, the British, you get this strong sense of injustice, this sort of desire to stand up for underdogs and to defend people. Like, I mean, Ireland have been one of the only countries to have sort of quite steadfastly supported Palestine, and that's because they know what it's like. They've been in that situation. And you do kind of it sort of filters into every aspect of the kind of stories that you like to tell, the kind of characters you want to write about. So yeah, it's the city itself and the heritage. It does have a strong influence. And for the setting of this particular world, I wanted to have this sort of crumbling medieval city, which is very reflective of people who live there. They're all sort of crumbling. They've got no future. And it's basically their last stand.
So you've answered it a little bit already, I think, but was the corrupt government in Together We Rise inspired by current world situations?
Yeah, definitely. Not like obviously putting the finger specifically at Trump,
Mm.
but Trump is probably. I think we're in the age now where it's like this is rampant capitalism, which is the kind of things I was probably edging towards. But a lot of it is based on other. I mean, it's a global system. So there's different parts of the world they have these different extremes, and the whole point is that the system is exploitative. Um, it can obviously be done in a fair way, but it doesn't benefit that many people when it's done like that. So, or the individuals in power. So it's grim. And that's one of the main reasons, yeah, why I decided to go for that.
So I was just thinking, so you trained as a lawyer originally. So has that influenced it as well? Your
Yeah.
experiences there.
Well, the second chapter is called The Worker, isn't it? Which is about the working class perspective and the working people. And that was my job. I was like a industrial disease and serious accidents at work lawyer. So I was defending like people who were in the trade unions. Also, representing them and like fighting for a bit of justice and the compensation. But I soon realised that there's very little fairness. There's very little justice in that justice system, and I got very disillusioned with it. So just left it in the end, and then that's why I decided to give writing a full crack of the whip.
Funnily enough, this month in November, as we're in at the moment here, the previous author, Lexi, she was also a lawyer before she became a writer. So maybe something about writers, lawyers becoming writers, and I don't know, inspires them to do their writing. I think hers influenced her writing as well.
It's interesting because there's a storytelling aspect to it. You're dealing with a person, and in my particular job, I was having to go back through their entire working lives and almost like creating a story and a narrative for them and how they've sort of gone through life. And there's a lot of character involvement there, and I do think you get good inspiration from it. Yeah.
Okay. How much time did you spend creating the world before you started writing the novel? I mean, how deep did you go in creating it?
I try not to spend too much time on world building, just because I kind of feel like it ends up becoming procrastination. So with this story, I'd actually written it like probably about 8 years ago. So the first novel that when I started writing, I decided I'm going to write a novel, nice and easy project. I'm going to write a big novel, and then this was one of the storylines in that novel is Till like going through everything that sort of gets revealed in the story, and then finally the revolution. But I was like, I don't want to go through all the build up. I just want to tell the story of the revolution, which is a bit trickier because you had to get a fair amount of backstory in, make sure that the justifications that the behind what they're doing are compelling enough to the readers. But it was sort of created before, and it was my favourite part of that novel, and I didn't want to just dump it. So this was almost convenient that it was what was going on in my mind, and this was there. So that's why it's as a writer, it's always good to keep things because you're never gonna, even if it doesn't work for that bit, you've still got that piece of the puzzle. You just got to find the other piece and bring them together. And sometimes it can be years in between finding the pieces. I was saying this to someone on a Halloween party on Friday who was getting into writing, and I was saying, just think of yourself as a collector of ideas, a collector of sort of tips and advice from lots of different authors. Like not one person knows how to write. Everyone has their own way and their own processes and their own sort of ingredients that like you've just been asking me, like the kind of stories I like to tell. It's like 99.9% of other people probably don't like to tell them kind of stories. So it's just finding what works for you. So just collect lots of things, write them all down, and all the pieces will be there. You just got to assemble them.
Are you what people call a pantser? Do you write, by the seat of your pants, or do you plan everything then, or?
I probably am more of a hybrid of the two. because
Likewise.
I just don't. I don't know about you, but I don't like the idea of like just starting something and then running into a dead end with it, or it not going anywhere, and then I've wasted all that time and energy. So whenever I come up with an idea, I have to interrogate it, and just basically make sure that it's going to hit all the points and that it's going to be a complete rounded story. And only then will I start. But at that point, I'll probably only have like vague plot points. This happens, this happens, this happens, roughly. And the most time I will spend is on the character. Because, without a decent character that's going to carry the story, then no one's going to read it anyway. So,
if you don't like the character, you're not going to read the book, are you?
Yeah.
It's very character-driven novel. It feels like the story has been left open for a sequel. So are you planning more books in the series?
Yeah. So this is actually, like I mentioned before, like Mal, she had a short story. So this is a world that I've been populating with short stories for a while. I've previously written a novel, which didn't go anywhere, and I've kind of gutted now to create Together We Rise. And I have written I would say probably a sequel, in a novel form, which tells the story of another conflict, which the Kyra are behind. The Kyra, who are the sort of main bad guys and behind the state of Pia Talos. And they've started an uprising in a really sort of rural part of the continent, which I very much mirror on the Lake District. I really love the Lake District. It's a bit of a typical fantasy setting, I know, but I just love it. I love the sort of the hills, the fells, these big drops into lakes and caves, and there's something really eerie about it, especially when you know that like there's nobody else around. It's quite remote. There's a sort of almost like a Stephen King eeriness, a bit of a Lovecraftian vibe. And that's a story about a woman and a baby, basically a newborn baby, escaping the war. But I need to edit it. I got bored of editing it. Gave up. I need to go back to it.
I remember we climbed Scafell Pike, which is the highest peak in England, I think, and in the Lake District. And you go up there, and there wasn't that many people up there. You go up Snowdon, and it's got a cafe and a train line up the top. But yeah, Scafell and the Lake District generally, just like you say, it has that wonderful feel about it.
How did you find Scafell? Because I'm going to plan to do that quite soon.
Oh, great, brilliant.
Yeah.
Good climb. Our directions weren't that clear. It said you're going to cross a boulder-strewn field on our path, and it was literally entirely boulders with no spaces in between. But no, it was a good climb and a very satisfying feeling when you got to the top. Not too busy, like I say. So yeah, I recommend it definitely.
Nice.
You have a podcast of your own, the Fantasy Writers Toolshed. I've listened to one episode so far.
Nice,
and
thank you.
My writing and paranormal experiences inspired me to create this podcast. What inspired you to make yours?
It was very similar. It started probably about 5 years ago now with a writing friend called J.M. Williams, and we just used to do it together just to talk about writing. And J.M. had to take a back seat because his work life got busier. And at that time, I was like, I'm going to cancel this maybe, just leave it, move on. But quite a lot of people listened to it, so I was like, I'll just try it. So decided quite early on that not many people will just want to listen to me in this accent for 40 minutes or so. So I just set about trying to speak to as many interesting people as possible, like try and get experts on. So we've had quite a lot of historians to help with the world building side, and psychologists, sociologists, FBI special agent was an interesting one. He was like an expert in body language. Yeah. Did like 10,000 interviews in his career, so I can imagine it'd be hard to lie to him. And a lot of really great authors as well. So like Adrian Tchaikovsky, Stephen Ariane. The Christmas special this year is with R.J. Barker. And I personally love it because I get to learn from these people firsthand. I get to ask the questions that I want to ask them. And you do learn some fantastic things. So that's the main reason that I keep it alive, almost for myself, really. It's like a research thing. But it's great that like people still listen to it and still enjoy it. And I'm glad that the conversations seem to be quite interesting and useful. So that's the main thing. Is it's just always trying to find nuggets of useful information. Um, because like I said before, we're collectors of things. Like I could talk to someone for like 50 minutes and 90% of the things they say I won't find useful, but then that one little thing, I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to try that. Yeah.
I've definitely found the same thing. I mean, it's not particularly why I started it, I don't think, but I've learned a lot from the other authors. Monetarily, I don't really get anything from the podcast. It's too small, but you learn a lot from other authors, and it's nice to share that information as well with other writers.
Yeah, that's the best thing about writing. It's such a collaborative thing, even though it's so competitive in terms of getting your book before readers. At the same time, it's hugely collaborative. And that's probably one of the best things I love about it is that we can pick these little things up and share them with the world. And most people might not find them useful, but someone will, and then that'll inspire them, and then they might go and share something else that they've learned, and you kind of it's like a chain reaction of inspiration.
I think it's worth it if you just help one person, really.
Definitely,
but, you've also got a book, haven't you, about writing fantasy worlds?
Yeah,
tell us a little about that?
Yeah, this is sort of like this came about before the podcast, but it's the premise is the same. Is that it's again I was like studying a lot at the time and collecting all these different perspectives, these different devices and tools, and a fantasy writer's handbook. At the time, there wasn't really much to help people with writing fantasy, so I put this together. And it covers all aspects of storytelling. There's like a chapter specifically on writing fantasy, so I cover all the sort of historical aspects of the things we love in fantasy novels. Like, so there's archery, there's a whole chapter on archery. There's a chapter on swords, shields, sieges, all the classic sort of medieval fantasy stuff. And then a chapter at the end on what to do when you've actually finished writing. Like, if you've done a short story, how do you sort of edit it and get ready to send to publishers, and who do you send it to? So cover all them kind of things. And the podcast is sort of like a living extension of that book. And at some point, hopefully, if time allows, I will do a second edition with some new and updated chapters and stuff like that. But it's just time. No time in the world.
Yeah, never enough time. You also have some short stories published in Tales of Tevia, to say that, which features some of the characters in Together We Rise. You've got Flying on the Ground is another. So was writing short stories your route into writing longer books?
Yeah, so like I think most of us start. I don't know about yourself, Karen. When you get that sort of the bug for writing, you get all enthusiastic, and I'm going to write a 3-series fantasy. So you start writing, and then probably after 40,000 words, you start to wonder whether it's any good. And then you realize it's not. And then you start to panic, and then that's when I started to get into the study of the craft. I've got more books on writing than I have any other kind of book. I love just studying that kind of thing. But one of the best pieces of advice that came from George R. R. Martin. Actually, I'm a big George R. R. Martin fan. He was the guy who inspired me to start writing my own stories, really. And I decided to look at advice from the people I admired. So Stephen King's On Writing it's a go-to book. It's not massively helpful sometimes, but you get more practical advice from people like George R. R. Martin. And one of the things he said is, when you're starting out, just practice as much as you can with short stories, because the projects are smaller. You learn to be more economical with your writing. You learn to write more complete stories. You need to know what feels quite complete for a short story. It's difficult. I always struggled with writing them because they would always end up being like the first chapters of novels, or the conclusion wouldn't be satisfying enough. But you just got to keep practicing. And like I mentioned before, I got really bored of editing a novel last year, or probably about 2 years ago, and I just wanted to start writing more short fiction. And to be honest, it really helped me feel like a writer again, because I was stuck for so long doing a novel, not getting any feedback, and you kind of almost doubt yourself, lose a bit of confidence. And that's why I decided to go more to short fiction. And I've enjoyed it a lot more, to be honest. I like picking up ideas and creating something short and snappy. I've just finished 7 days of micro horror fiction. So that's 100-word horror stories, two a day. And they were really fun to write. Just, it's a challenge to get it into 100 words, but like,
yeah, I mean,
these,
exactly the same. I love
Yeah.
microfictions. I've written quite a few 100-word microfictions because
Nice.
they really help you focus what words you use, because we put in a lot of extraneous words really as writers and things you don't need to say, and it just helps you get that story into such a short, tiny space.
Yeah.
But short stories as well. I started writing lots of short stories. I still do.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's a great way to start. That's good advice for people.
What would you say is the best, if you write a lot of short stories, what's your best bit of advice for capturing it all in that short word count?
Oh, I don't. That's a good question. I don't know. The stories for me, they just tell themselves, and I just follow them through to the end. I never plan this is going to be a 3,000-word story or something.
Yeah.
My inspirations often come when I'm out somewhere or see something. One of my short stories is a kid's story, but it's called The Empty Shop, because I kept passing this empty shop every time I went shopping, and it's like an old-fashioned looking shop, and it's a ghost story actually. But so inspiration for me comes from anywhere. But I don't know if I got any advice on writing short stories. I don't. I
Yeah.
just follow my nose and see where it leads me. Really,
That's really cool. I like the sound of the shop. So
I'm a bit of a pantser myself. I do, or a plantser, because I plan a little bit and then I write a bit. So I only write about a paragraph for each chapter. One of my friends plans every tiny detail, but that's just not me. So
I know. I
just
kind
write
of,
as I go along.
yeah, I agree with you completely, because I kind of, when I used to do that, I used to like say, all right, in this chapter, there'll be these 10 points that need to happen. And then it becomes quite formulaic. It is easier to write because you've got them prompts there, but like you say, it's just more natural just to get into the scene and to give yourself that freedom to let the conversation flow, let the action play out, let the characters lead you.
My character's always sort of taking the story another route. I'm like, oh, that's not what I planned. And they go off and they do something I wasn't expecting, but it just feels right for that character at that time to do that. So
Yeah.
that's what I like about it. I think about writing, the spontaneity of it, and I'm sure not everybody works the same, but it works for me.
Exactly, yeah.
So which author do you feel has influenced you the most? You mentioned George R. Martin. Is he
Yeah.
your biggest influence?
Yeah, and the reason why, so I've always read a lot of fantasy, but I think I probably about the age of 23, I started reading a lot of quite sort of adult, sort of grittier fantasy. I just read a load of Raymond Feist books, which were brilliant. I absolutely loved them, and that sort of gave me the fantasy bug. And then I started reading The Song of Ice and Fire, and the writing and the characters and the richness of the world really just drew me in, and I just burned through them. And then there was one night when I was reading A Storm of Swords, which is the one with the red wedding, and it was the second book in, I think the third book split into two, and it was the second book, and it was about 1 a.m. and I just started reading it because I couldn't sleep. And the next time I checked my phone to see what time it was 7 a.m. And I was like, that's never happened. It was almost like a magical experience that the writing had sort of enraptured me that much that the passage of time just became lost, and I was just absorbed into the story. And I sort of realized then, I was probably knew it at the time as a kid, or saw it at the time as a kid, like this magic in books.
Mm.
And it was like the magic had sort of been revealed to me once again. And at that point, I was like, I would love to be able to do this for other people, to give them that experience that they can like lose themselves in. And so George R. R. Martin, yeah. And it's a bit of a controversial one because Game of Thrones is so popular and stuff, but like as a writer, I think he's phenomenal, and especially his ability to create characters. So yeah, and I'm hugely sympathetic with him over finishing Game of Thrones. I don't think he ever will.
He gets
If
a lot of flack from people, doesn't he, about that?
I think he might finish the next book, but I don't think he'll finish it all. And I totally sympathise. It's a huge, huge story. It's not like carrying on like with an 80,000 novel, 80,000 word novel. It's there's so many plot lines. There's so many things to keep track of. He has like a team of people who write just to check for inconsistencies. If he's like writing something new, they'd be like, you can't say that because this character's already done this, which you definitely need. But he always, growing up, he always wanted to be a TV writer, and he was never ever successful with being a TV writer. So he started writing novels, and now he's like he created some of the, or helped being involved in creating some of the greatest TV shows ever. And you can see now that's what excites him, and that's the world he's in. He's making these Game of Thrones TV shows. Like I am excited for the Tales of Dunk and Egg because they're based on brilliant books again. But yeah, I don't think we're ever going to see the end of Game of Thrones. But yeah, I admire him a lot, and yeah, I love his writing.
I don't know about you, but when you're writing, you lose time in the same sort of way, don't you? Like you look and 4 or 5 hours has gone by, and I always think that if you're enjoying it and time's gone that quick, then hopefully the readers will be enjoying it too.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's the best piece of advice that you can give to other aspiring fantasy authors?
For me, I think it's probably nothing practical. It's just more of a mental one, and just simply not to give up, because it's probably one of the hardest things you're going to do in your life. Just to sit there on your own and tap away at and try and complete a story, especially a novel-length story. It's a lot of words. And to edit it and to bring it all together into a book. I don't think a lot of people appreciate just how much time, work, and dedication goes into that. And the only reason that novel's there is because that person chose not to give up when it got difficult, when they found themselves in a bit of a plot hole or characters aren't clicking, mounds of editing to do, and then there's so many opportunities for you just to give up and walk away. And what do they say? Like 90% of people who start, or probably even higher, who start writing a book just give up. So the main thing is not to give up, because that gives you a chance at least to put a completed story before other people, and you never know, they might love it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just completing a novel, like you say, that's a huge thing. Let alone getting it published. But and if you get to the point of getting it published, well done. Whether it has success or not, it's an amazing thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what element of the fantasy worlds do you wish existed in the real world?
I would like a bit of magic. Just not loads, but just like little things, just to like, if the door's open there, I'll just go like that, close it. Like little things just to make your life a bit easier. What about you? What would you go for?
I thought about that as well. I think it's got to be magic, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, change into a hair or something, or
Yeah, that'd be a good
I
one.
should say everyday things would be really useful as well. But very much like in the sort of Harry Potter world, isn't it? You get magic to do your knitting for you or something. But
Yeah.
yeah. So you could fly or do all sorts of things. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
But, it'd be great to have other races as well, I suppose, like elves and things around.
That would be very cool. That would be cool. I would like that.
I liked, I'm trying to think of the name of it now. The film, Bright, is it? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. It was that
where they have elves in the real world, and all the other races are there or something, aren't they? And magic is real.
Yeah, it's a clever concept.
I like magic in sort of, I suppose, urban fantasy, sort of magic in the real world settings. Quite cool.
Yeah, it is, because it's like you say, it's making what we know a bit more interesting and fantastical. And
I mean, it's what I kind of tried to do in my novel, that there's this hidden world beneath the world that we all know that you didn't even know was there.
nice.
Can suspend your belief for a moment. So, although it's a fantasy novel, how do you make your world seem believable? So, as an example for listeners, my husband read a novel where a man fell off a mountain and he was barely injured, and he said to me it ruined the rest of the book for him because he felt it just wasn't believable. I mean, obviously they're different races or they're magical, but to him it felt a bit improbable that they would survive something like that. I mean, he thought you'd be dead at the end of it, so he's just kind of like, oh. So how do you make it feel believable for people?
I think it's probably more of a pressing thing because of the type of fantasy. Because I like dark fantasy and grimdark, and there is an expectation that is going to be quite realistic. So if you do fall off a mountain, you probably describe the cracking of the bones and the 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 weird angles that limbs are putting at. A bit more. You don't shy away on the details. Um, in terms of realism, it's just, I suppose it's almost like using a bit of common sense. Really, it's like if you're gonna kill someone, that's gonna have an impact on you as a person, and you just need to make these reactions compelling and explore the emotion in a bit more detail. I think that's one of the things that when I've sort of helped writers with the things, it's like character A does this, and then there might be some kind of like, oh, that person's quiet now because they've killed somebody or something like that, to show that they're brooding or whatever. But you've got to go into that extra layer. You've got to think of like the conflicts that are going on in their minds. They've got like a voice inside them telling them about person, and then there's another voice within them trying to justify what they've done. And I think that's where it's almost like the emotions. If you can get your emotions within your story, it almost feels alive and believable. It's difficult to do, I think, and some writers,
especially in the time frame of a novel, because if they go through something traumatic, normally you might spend months or years recovering from it, but obviously you've got to finish the novel. So yeah, how do you convey that?
I think it's quite useful sometimes because, like you say, that you've got like these sort of psychological disorders which can develop over time, but the pressing urgency of the situation that they're in doesn't allow them for that. But you can bring in bits, so you've always got them quiet moments like around a campfire where like people are talking and reflecting, or you can always, there's a lot of like quiet bits when there's like journeys to and from places, so you can always bring in elements of it just to show it's there and to show that it is a real living world. And I think a lot of the time you can get things from side characters. Like I love side characters. I love the reader to see that they've got their own life, that something else is going on with them. That is, as far as they're concerned, that's the biggest deal. We don't care about what our hero's up to, even though they're about to save the world that's about to be destroyed or whatever. These side characters is more concerned about like fixing his like defense of his sheep pen. So if you can get like things like that in as well, just has to be like, I think someone always picked up on a line that I included in Pariah's Lament, which was a novel, and it was just about kids playing like their own made up sport in the town square, and they just picked that up and they said, oh, it just made the world feel so alive. So that's probably a little example that you could try and adopt.
Yeah, such a simple thing, but yeah, I know what you mean, because that's what kids do, don't they? They're always making up their own games. And how do you feel that writers can help other writers?
I suppose the easiest thing, like I think we've probably said it a few times throughout, is when you find something useful, just share it. Write a blog post about it, do a little social media post. And that's what I tend to do now, is I've got a newsletter, and I'll share new things that I've learned. If I'm reading books and on writing, I'll like highlight stuff in the page and maybe take a picture and share that on social media. It's just like whatever way you think's best. Like you could do the podcast, you could do a book, you could make a website. Anyway, but I always think it's great to encourage people to write as much as possible. And a lot of people, it's the lack of belief. But it's also that lack of belief comes from like a lack of understanding how. So if you find like a nice, easy way for people to write a story, for example, share it and encourage people.
And what do you feel is a brilliant but underappreciated fantasy?
I absolutely love. It's a series called Lowtown by Daniel Polanski, and for me, it inspired Together We Rise. It's inspired me to write it, and he was on my podcast. He was a guest on my podcast, and he's written a lot of really good fantasy, and he writes in like a really quite like a nice literary style, and it was really refreshing because Lowtown, especially, I could relate a lot. It was like this gritty city where we see a lot of the issues that are in Together We Rise, and a lot of the issues that working class people relate to more. And Daniel himself is from Baltimore, which is a bit of a similar city to Liverpool, and I could relate to that a lot. And Baltimore is also where The Wire is set, so there is a lot of influence. Well, a few influences from The Wire in that story as well, which I like. And it's just about a character who is called Warden, and he ends up being part of like quite high up in the sort of the secret service level of the police, just going around and making sure orders kept and stuff like that. But we see him years later when he's been kicked out and he's now a drug dealer. And he's a pretty effective drug dealer as well. But he's just a bit flawed, he's a bit broken, but he's still competent. And the story is really good. I really like that. So, Lowtown by Daniel Polanski, great series. If you like something a bit more grittier.
Is he an indie author or is he a published author?
No, he's seriously published. Yeah, I think he's got a few with Angry Robots. Can't remember who published Lowtown, but yeah, I know he's published a few with Angry Robot recently.
And what job would you like to have if you lived in a fantasy world?
That's a very good question. Nice job. I don't think it would be quite fun living in a big city. I always like the idea of just farm, having a nice farm, quiet, remote. But then you always see these places getting burned and torched by like bandits and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe like the advisor to a king or something like that, and not the king himself, but someone just a bit.
Stop the corruption.
Yeah, try and have a bit more influence on things. Yeah.
I think I'd probably quite like to be a wizard or something like that. I'll play D&D. I've got a wizard character. Is that something you've ever done?
Do you know, I've never played D&D, but I've always loved the idea of giving it a go.
Oh, it's brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Best game ever.
Yeah, great for storytelling ideas as well, isn't it?
My husband has a sandbox world, so you can go anywhere in it, and it's like huge, massive. So, yeah, it's really fun. Your imagination can just fire up and go wherever you want to go, really, and as well.
Nice.
So I researched you before interviewing you and found you're on quite a lot of podcasts, and you're clearly very good at marketing yourself. And it's so hard as writers to make ourselves heard. Do you have any advice for aspiring writers on how to promote themselves?
It's a very good question. It's a question I'm still trying to answer properly myself. I try a lot of different things. I've tried all kinds. I'll be honest. I've paid like as an experiment, like over £1,000 on book tours, trying different old book tour companies. Useless, absolutely wasting money. I've hired publicists. Again, wasting money. It's the main thing I've found with marketing is it's time, because you've got to write the book and edit it and whatnot. Where do you find the time to do all the extras? Like,
Yeah.
People go, oh, I make a podcast, but like as you probably know yourself, podcasts take time to do. there's a lot of pressure, I suppose, to keep writing, but also you don't want to just be shouting into a void. You want people to be appreciating stuff. So this year, I suppose, what I've realised is I probably need an extra pair of hands. And what I've done is I've got myself a virtual assistant called Zindy. Shout out to Zindy, she helps me an awful lot. And yes, she basically, I give a bit of instructions and like I'll do some. I say, like Zindy, this week we need to do some TikTok outreach. So I need to go and find me as many TikTok book reviewers as possible who we can send pictures to. So she'll go off, search a few keywords on TikTok, do some vetting of the profile, and then we've got this massive list now of TikTok book reviewers. I think there's probably about 800 on there now.
Wow.
And then we just write to them, send a pitch, and yeah, it's been brilliant. And we've done the same with podcasts. We're currently doing the same with independent bookshops. We're going to try and sell directly to bookshops that way. And it's honestly, it's great just having someone doing that legwork so that you, and also just like, I don't really have to get involved until someone replies. So it's like filtration. It's like saving you so much time. And honestly, it's been for this year, it is a financial investment because you're paying someone a wage. But she maybe does like 5 or 6 hours a week for me. So it's not a massive investment. But the help is phenomenal. So I do put it down to this year, especially because Together We Rise has come out. I've had to put a lot more time and effort into marketing and just to increase the workforce almost. It's not just me doing it, it's someone else helping me. I said before, it's a collaborative process, and the more help you can get, you probably see people yourself, like some indie authors, they'll have these like sort of shout out teams, or like they'll have the ARC teams, and like, what do they call them? Like supporters or something like that. But they're just like basically fans of theirs who love the stuff enough and will be willing to help. And that gives you a massive boost because you've got all these people shouting about the book and posting about the book, and it helps cut through the noise on social media and hopefully gets more eyes on what you've written.
Word of mouth and recommendations, I think, are still the best way, aren't they, to get
influencer marketing, yeah,
genuinely interested, yeah. It's so hard. I've tried so many different things myself. I've forgotten his name. There's a guy I follow, and he's got 7 or 8 books in his series, and he's turned them all into audiobooks, and he puts them all together, and then he has like mass sort of selling his day where he make that book collection really cheap. So everybody goes, oh great, I get 8 books for the price of 1, really.
That's clever.
But that's quite a long way off, I think, for me. I'm only written 2 books. I'm on writing my 3rd at the moment. But yeah, it's hard to get that traction.
It is, yeah. You can use your short stories as well. I mean, I love using short stories to entice people in, use them as reader magnets. You can package them up quite nicely. Doesn't take too long to do.
Yeah. I am thinking of doing that this week, actually. I just thought with my kids' short stories, I might make a sort of compendium of stories, but I'm just trying to work out how to go about that.
Yeah.
So finally, where can people find you online, or what events can they meet you at?
Oh, I'm not an eventy person, really. I go to the odd fantasy con. But online, best place to go is Patreon. I've shifted all of my writing to Patreon now. Just because I think it's probably a more sustainable way of surviving as an author compared to just writing and hoping that people buy every couple of years whenever a new book comes out or whatever. So Patreon, I do a lot of short fiction at the moment. I'm doing web series. I'm releasing a chapter a week. I've had a little Halloween event, so you get a new story every day. And for the price of like, I think it's like $1 a month, you can get like $40, $50 plus worth of books, all novels, novellas, behind the scenes content. So yeah, Patreon is the main place. And then I've got a website, richiebilling.com. Better for writers than it is readers. lots of tools on there. There's like a fancy name generator. There's lots of guides on every aspect of writing, really. And yeah, they're the main two. I am on Instagram. I'm on TikTok as well. But like I say, I'm not a very social media savvy person. So don't expect too much from those.
And do you have a newsletter as well?
I do, yeah. So I write a newsletter that goes out once a month, and then for readers, new newsletter every week, every Monday. So yeah, if you like to stay in the loop, just head over there and subscribe.
Right, I have a newsletter, but I'm very sporadic in sending mine, so you're doing really well. Right, so this is going to go out live in December. So Merry Christmas, I guess, to anybody
Merry
listening.
Christmas.
And next month, it will be in January, I'll be chatting to author Liam Graves about the release of his new true life ghost haunting book, The Lady in the Bay Window 2. So he'll be speaking to me live from his haunted home in Sheffield. So thanks very much, Richie, and I'll see you all next time.
Thank you, Karen. Great chatting.
There are stories galore in volumes by the score on every subject throughout history. It's all